Hi folks, Mrs. Findy here again. So we're getting started on Wednesday's lesson now. We're going to do starters and then get on with the main business of today's lesson. So if you know what you're doing with these starters, remember just pause the video and then restart it to check that you're right. Okay, so the first question, work out 3 1/4 times 1 1/2. So we need to change both of these fractions into improper fractions because they're mixed numbers at the moment. So remember how we do that is you do the denominator times the whole number. So that would give us 4 times 3 is 12. And then you add the 1. So we've got 13 over 4. Okay, and then we do the same here. We do 2 times 1 and then add the 1. And that gives us 3 over 2. So remember the denominators don't change. If there's any of this that you need help with, just shout at any point. Just drop me a message and I can do an extra little lesson on that. Okay. I think as we're going along, I'll probably need to do some National 4 kind of backup work. Some National 4 essential skills. So if there are any particular topics that you think you need help with, just let me know. And I can plan for that. Okay, so there's actually no simplifying to be done here because there's nothing on the tops of these fractions that will simplify with something on the bottom. So we can just go straight to doing 13 times 3 is 39 and 4 times 2 is 8. And then we can leave it like that or we can write it back as a mixed number. If we're going to do it as a mixed number, we do 39 divided by 8. So there are 4 8s in 39. And remember, 4 8s are 32. So you've got another 7 8s left over. So the answer there is 4 7 8. Okay, second one, find 65% of 84 grams. So what we're going to do here is find 10%. Then we're going to find 60%. Then we're going to find 5%. And then we're going to add up the 60% and the 5%, and that will give us the 65%. Okay, so that's the plan. So 10% of 84 grams, remember we're dividing by 10, so we move all our figures one place to the right, and that will give us 8.4. Okay, then to find 60%, we're going to have to multiply 8.4 by 6, because we need 6 lots of 10%. I'm not going to draw the bottom line in for my answer box here because I'm just leaving it clear so that I can then do this addition to get the 65%, in case you're wondering. So 4 times 6 is 24 and 8 6s are 48, add the 2 makes 50. So we've got 504, and when we look at the question, we've got 1 decimal place in the question, so we need 1 decimal place in the answer, which means that the decimal point has to go there. Okay, so we've got 50.4 there. And then our 5%, well, we just need to look at our 10% and half it. So half of 8.4 is 4.2. And then we can add these two together because we've got 60% here, 5% here. So when you add them together, you're going to get 65%. So 4 add 2 is 6. Keep your points in line. 0 add 4 is 4. And 5 add 0 is 5. So the answer is 54.6. And remember, the question was grams. So the answer needs to be grams also. Okay, and then the last one. Find the value of 3x, x minus 1, when x is equal to -2. Right, so now, when we're doing this one, all we're doing really is we're needing to substitute wherever we see an x, we need to swap it for a -2. Okay, so we're going to put a -2 in here, a -2 in here, and then we're going to work out the value of it all. Okay, so when we do that, I'm just going to do it by rubbing out. Okay, so I'm going to lose that x from there, and I'm going to swap it for a -2. Okay, I'm going to lose that x from there, and I'm going to swap it for a -2. Okay, now I've put my -2's in brackets here, just to be quite clear. Okay, So what we've got here, what this means, if we can just write it a bit more simply, is we've got 3. Now 3 and then the -2 in a bracket. That means 3 times -2. And then remember, anything outside a bracket is multiplying the bracket. And then inside the bracket, we've got a -2 and a takeaway 1. Okay, so that's what we're working out there, is 3 times -2 times -2 takeaway 1. Okay, so now 3 times -2 is -6, and the value of the bracket is -2 takeaway 1, so that's -3. So we've got -6 times -3. So remember, when you're multiplying two things together, if the signs match, the answer is positive, and these signs do match. And 6 times 3 is 18, so the answer is positive 18. Okay. Right, so moving on to today's main work then. Here we are. Right, so I've written out here what we've done already and what's coming up. So in our first lesson, we did the first two aspects here. We did multiplying a bracket by a single term. We did simplifying expressions involving multiplying brackets by a single term. And yesterday, we did multiplying two brackets together when we had two terms in each bracket. So today, what we're going to do is recap what we did yesterday, and then we're going to get on to this one, multiplying two brackets together with up to 3 terms per bracket. Okay, so the methods that we looked at yesterday, to remind you, are using a table, using lines, using FOIL, and breaking the first bracket. So what I'm going to do here is the first question. I'm going to... Sorry, I'm not actually just picking a colour to write with. So the first question, we're going to use table and lines, and then the second question, we're going to use FOIL and break the first bracket, just to remind you how to do these. And again, remember, just tell me if you think you need more practice. It's no bother at all to put some more practice questions up for you. Okay, so when we're doing the first one, then we'll look at a table to start with. So when we're doing a table, it's a multiplication table. We put one bracket across the top, and we put the other bracket down the side. So we've got 3r and +2 from the first bracket, and then we've got 5 and -r from the second bracket. And then we just remember, work out what goes in these 4 places. Okay, so we start off with this one. So we've got 3r times 5 gives us 15r. Then to find what goes here, we've got 2 times 5. Then what goes here is 3r times -r. So remember, you've got a positive times a negative, so that's a negative. And it's 3r squared. Don't forget the squared because it's r times r. And then for the last one here, we've got 2 times -r, so that's -2r. Okay, so like I said to you yesterday, the terms that you can combine by collecting like terms don't always appear in the same places. So we can see today that we've got an r squared term here, we've got r terms here, and we've got a number there. So this time, it's those two terms that are going to combine. So putting our r squared term first, we get -3r squared, and then we've got 15r, take away 2r, so that's plus 13r, and then we've still got a plus 10. So by using a table, we get the answer -3r squared plus 13r plus 10. So we're going to do the same example, but using lines now. Okay, so remember the lines, we're going to do one at a time, okay? So that's our first line. So we're going to do 3r times 5. And these are all just ways of making sure that everything in the first bracket multiplies everything in the second bracket. So 3r times 5 is 15r. The next line goes from the first term to that one there. So then we've got 3r times negative r, so that gives us our negative 3r squared. The next line goes from the 2 to the second bracket, so we've got 2 times 5, so plus 10, and then our last line goes from the 2 to the negative r, so we've got minus 2r. Okay, so altogether then, r squared's first, so we've got minus 3r squared, and then we've got a 15r here, and a minus 2r here, so it'll give us plus 13r, and then we've still got this plus 10 as well. So our answer is negative 3r squared plus 13r plus 10, which is exactly the same as this one, of course, because it was the same question. Okay, so we're going to do the other two methods for the next example. So we're going to use FOIL, and we're going to do it by breaking the first bracket as well. So first of all, using FOIL. So remember, FOIL means firsts, outsides, insides, and lasts. So the firsts then, if we just write out the bracket again. Right, so the firsts are this and this. Okay, so we've got y times 3y. So that gives us 3y squared. The outsides are the things that are furthest away from each other. So this y in the first bracket and the negative 5 in the second. So we've got y times negative 5, so that gives us minus 5y. Then the insides, so I for insides. So the insides are the two that are closest together. So we've got a negative 4 and a positive 3y. So that'll give us a negative 12y. And then the lasts, so we've got the last thing in that bracket times the last thing in that bracket. So that's negative 4 times negative 5, which will give us positive 20. Okay, so simplifying that then, we've got 3y squared, and then we've got minus 5y and minus 12y. So altogether we've got minus 17y and then plus 20. Okay, so that's using FOIL. Then we'll do it by breaking the first bracket. So starting again, y minus 4 times 3y minus 5. So same question again. So we're going to split the first bracket. So the first bit of the first bracket is going to go here, and then we're going to multiply it by that bracket. And then the second bit of the bracket is going to go here, also multiplied by that bracket. So we've got y times 3y minus 5. So that's from there. And then we're going to put the minus 4 lots of this bracket now. So minus 4 lots of 3y minus 5. Then we multiply out both of these brackets separately and simplify by collecting like terms. So first bracket, we've got y times 3y is 3y squared, and y times negative 5 is minus 5y. In the second bracket, we've got negative 4 times 3y, so that's minus 12y. And then we've got negative 4 times negative 5, so that's plus 20. And then collecting like terms here in the middle again, 3y squared minus 17y plus 20. And of course that's the same as what we got here. Okay, so that's just a recap of the 4 different methods when we're multiplying two brackets together when each bracket has got 2 terms in it. So what we're going to do now is move on to when we've got more than 2 terms in a bracket. So we're going to have a look and see which of our 4 methods still work now, because we can see that in this question, if we're going to expand these brackets, this first bracket has got 3 items in it, 3 terms make up the expression in the first bracket, and all of these have to multiply both of those. Okay, so we can still use a table, we can still draw lines, but that becomes a little bit more tricky, and we can still break the first bracket. It doesn't make sense now to talk about using FOIL, firsts, outsides, insides, lasts, because that doesn't take any account of the fact that we've got this middle term here. Okay, so if we've got more than 2 terms in a bracket, you can't use FOIL. Okay, right, so let's look at what we can use then. We can use a table. So if we've got x squared, 2x and 3 in the first bracket, and in the second bracket we've got x and 1. I kept everything positive in this first example. So instead of having 4 gaps to fill, we've now got 6. Okay, but we do it in exactly the same way as before. So we've got to start with what goes here is x squared times x, so that will give us x cubed. In this space, we've got 2x times x, so that's 2x squared. In this space, we've got 3 times x, so just 3x there. In this space, we've got x squared times 1, that's just x squared. In this space, we've got 2x times 1, so that's just 2x. And in the last space, we've got 3 times 1, so positive 3. Okay, now we need to look at what we can do to collect like terms here to simplify. So we can see that we've got 1x cubed, then we've got in x squared, you can see you've got an x squared here and a 2x squared here. So we can combine these two together. So we've got 1x squared and 2x squared, so we've got 3x squared. Okay, then we're looking at x's. We've got 2x here and we've got 3x there. So altogether, we've got 5x there. And we've still got our 3 on the end. Okay, so when we started off with 3 terms in the first bracket and 2 in the second bracket, we ended up with 6 terms in the first place. And then when we simplified, we just ended up with 4. Okay, so that's using a table. I'm going to skip the lines bit just now. And we'll look at breaking the first bracket. So if I'll just write the question out again. So we're going to break the first bracket, and each of these 3 terms needs to be multiplied by this second bracket. Okay, so we're going to get x squared times x plus 1, and we'll have plus 2x times x plus 1, and we'll have plus 3 times x plus 1. So all that we've done here is I've broken this first bracket up. So there's the x squared, there's the 2x, there's the 3, and they're all being multiplied by the second bracket, which is x plus 1. Okay then, so let's do this multiplying out. So x squared times x is x cubed, x squared times 1 is x squared. Then we've got 2x times x, so that's plus 2x squared, and 2x times 1 plus 2x, and then 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times 1 is 3. So combining these then, we've got an x cubed at the start, and then we can see we've got plus an x squared there, and plus 2 more x squared, so that's plus 3x squared. Then we've got a plus 2x and a plus 3x, so plus 5x. And then we've got our plus 3 on the end. So that, of course, here, our overall answer is the same as that one there. And our 6 terms that we had here are exactly the same as the 6 terms that we've got there, but they're not in the same order. Okay, now, when we're looking at the lines, that's a little bit different in this case. So if we've got our 3 terms in the first bracket, if we start drawing lines here, we're going to go there to there, and there to there, and then there to there, and there to there. But when we get doing the 3, it's all crossing over and it doesn't look great. So we're not going to do it like that, because that's not overly helpful. Okay, we're going to do it. Just a second. We're going to draw the lines from the second bracket because it's a little bit easier. So we're going to make sure that the x multiplies the x squared, that the x multiplies the 2x, and the x multiplies the 3. And we're going to make sure the 1 does the same. So the 1 is going to multiply the x squared, it's going to multiply the 2x, and it's going to multiply the 3. And by drawing the lines like that, we can make sure they're not crossing over and they don't look as higgledy-piggledy as they did before. Okay, so let's just lose those lines just now and then we'll draw them one at a time. A bit easier that way. Okay, so we've got x squared plus 2x plus 3. Basically, remember, all we're trying to do here is make sure that everything in the first bracket multiplies everything in the second. So we're going to draw our lines one at a time. So that one first of all. So that'll give us x squared times x is x cubed. Then the next line is sticking with the x in the second bracket and going to the 2x. So x times 2x is 2x squared. And then the x times the 3 gives us plus 3x. Then making sure the 1 multiplies everything, we've got 1 times x squared, so that's plus x squared. We've got 1 times the 2x, so plus 2x. And then we've got 1 times the 3, so we've got plus 3. And then when we simplify that, we've got x cubed, and then in x squareds, we've got a plus 2x squared there, and a plus 1x squared there, so we've got plus 3x squared. And then in x's, we've got a 3x there, and a 2x there, so plus 5x, and then on the end, we've still got our plus 3. And as you would expect, this answer is exactly the same as that one, and these 6 terms are exactly the same as those 6 terms, but they're in a different order. Okay, so the 3 methods that we can use here are a table, breaking the first bracket, and lines. Okay, now you don't have to actually draw the lines, you can just imagine them to make sure everything in the first bracket multiplies everything in the second. Okay, I'm going to do one more example now, and that'll do us for today. So I'm not going to do all the methods for this one. I think the table one is just as easy as it was when you've got 2 items per bracket or 2 terms in each bracket. So I'm going to use the lines again, okay? But I'm not going to actually draw the lines. The way I'm going to do it this time is I'm going to make sure that term multiplies that one and that one. Then I'm going to make sure this term multiplies that one and that one. And then I'm going to make sure that term multiplies that one and that one. So I'm sort of doing the lines, but without drawing them. Okay, so the first thing then is I'm going to multiply our first 2 terms together. So I've got 2t squared times 5, so that gives us 10t squared. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is make sure this first term here multiplies the other term in the second bracket. So I've got 2t squared times negative t. So it's a positive times a negative. So that's going to give us negative 2t cubed. Don't forget that t squared times t is t cubed. Okay, the next term, now we're going to make sure that this negative 3t multiplies the 5 and the negative t. So the negative 3t times positive 5 will give us minus 15t. And then the negative 3t times the negative t is going to give us positive 3t squared. And then we're going to make sure the negative 1 multiplies both of these terms. So the negative 1 times the 5 is minus 5, and then the negative 1 times the negative t gives us a positive t. Okay, so simplifying now, let's put the t cubed term first. So we've got negative 2t cubed. And then let's look at the t squareds. So we've got a 10t squared there and a 3t squared there. They're both positive, so that gives us plus 13t squared. Then looking at the t's next, we've got minus 15t there, and then we've got a plus t there, so we've got minus 15t and plus 1t, so that's minus 14t, and then we've still got a minus 5. So that's our 4 terms that we end up with for that one. So if you were going to do that by breaking the first bracket, you would have done 2t squared times the second bracket, minus 3t times the second bracket, minus 1 times the second bracket, and you would have ended up with the same 6 terms as we've got here. Here. They'd be in a different order, and then you end up with the same answer, of course. Okay, so that's another way of doing that one. Okay, right, so just take a moment just now. This is the last thing that we're doing today. Try this one. What I'm going to do is just let you pause the video, you see if you can work it out, and then just check back. So I'm going to set up each of the methods for you just now. So if you're using a table, then you're going to have y and 2 across the top, and y squared, look what I've done there, silly me, y squared plus 4x, that's not helpful, is it? Y squared plus 4y minus 1. So y squared, 4y and minus 1 there. So if you're using a table, that's your table set up for you. Don't need that bit there. If you're doing it by drawing lines, then we can do it from the first bracket, because the first bracket's the one that's got 2 items in it, or 2 terms in it. So our lines would be there, there, and there, and then there, there, and there. So that's if you're doing lines. Or if you're breaking the first bracket, then what you're going to have is y times y squared plus 4y minus 1 plus 2 times y squared plus 4y minus 1. Okay, so if you haven't already paused it, pause it just now, work out what the answer to this is, and then come back in a second and I'll have filled them all in. Okay, so whichever way you do that, you end up with y cubed plus 6y squared plus 7y minus 2. Okay, great stuff. So I will put some practice questions for you to do, and then you'll have the solutions to yesterday's work as well. Make sure you check those, and we'll be coming back tomorrow to recap what we've done yesterday and today, but also to multiply 3 brackets together. Okay, catch you tomorrow.